Hi everyone. So we are very lucky today to have Matt with us, and Matt is a clinical research fellow in neurosurgery, and he's going to talk to us today a bit about some research that he's been doing that involves brain tumours, and he's going to explain how this works and how hopefully this will improve things in the future for brain tumour patients. So Matt, if you could just let us know a bit about what you're doing, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Matt. I'm a neurosurgical registrar, and I'm currently doing a full-time research. So I'm working at the Department of Surgical Interventional Engineering at King's College London, and it's mainly a surgical imaging department. And our work is really based on improving surgical outcomes for patients by improving what surgeons can see during an operation. So to kind of give a bit of background on the work we do, one of the real challenges when you're operating on primary brain tumours, they're brain tumours that grow from the tissue of the brain itself and grow within the brain. And finding that point where brain and tumour overlap can be really challenging when you're operating. We know that the more tumour is removed at the time of surgery, the better the outcomes tend to be. We also know that it's not safe to go beyond the boundaries of tumour because brain has really critical functions really abutting up the edge of the tumour. And it's challenging just by feel to find where that edge is. One of the tools that surgeons use at the minute for particularly highly metabolic tumours is called fluorescence guided surgery. So they give patients a drink the morning of surgery. That contains a molecule that in very highly metabolizing cells is broken down quickly. And it's broken down into a molecule that is fluorescent. So when you shine a blue light on it, it glows red. And what that means is that for certain types of brain tumor called glioblastomas, when you're operating on them, you can shine a blue light using the surgical microscope and the tumor will glow red. And that can guide you to the edges of the tumour. That's in use now. That's common for almost every glioblastoma surgery. But the limitations of it are essentially that it relies on surgeon judgment. So at the very edge of tumour, there's not a clear plane between tumour and brain. They kind of mesh into each other. And the fluorescent light gets very dim. And the surgeon has to decide, do I think there's enough there to justify removing the tissue? There's no objective feedback. It's a very much a judgment call. The other thing is, in less metabolically active tumours, they're called low-grade gliomas. 80 to 90% of them don't show any fluorescence when you use this technique. We know that there is some fluorescent molecule there. There's just not enough for the naked eye to pick up on. So the work we're doing is trying to use a new type of camera system. It's called the Hyperspectral Camera. And the overall goal is to improve fluorescence guided surgery by picking up really small levels of fluorescence that the naked eye can't see, but also by quantifying it, by putting an objective number on it that relates to the probability that what you're seeing is tumour or brain. So it's giving that real clear guidance to surgeons when they operate. The way our cameras work is the naked eye sees three broad channels. You see red, blue, and green. And like you do in primary school art class, every other colour is a mix of those three. Hyperspectral cameras see anywhere between about 15 and 200 bands instead. So they can really finely break down the spectrum of light that you see. And from that information, we can tease out exactly what light is coming from the kind of background reflection of the brain and what is coming from this tumour-specific molecule that we look for. The problems, then the challenges, I guess, for research in that respect are that when you're trying to quantify fluorescent light, it's not just dependent on how much of the molecule is there. It's also dependent on how bright the light you're shining on it is, what the angles are, how much light is absorbed by other things like blood and the tissue of the brain. And all of that has to be accounted for automatically by the system, otherwise it won't work. And the worst case scenario is it gives misleading answers. So we're at a stage now where we're collecting lots of samples from patients undergoing brain tumor surgery. We're taking them to our dedicated optics lab, and we're running really fine grain measurements on them to see exactly how do these tissues respond to light, how can we accurately extract that information, and how can we automatically adjust for all those different things I talked about, like angle of light, distance of light, crossover of things like blood and other things in the brain naturally that glow.
And so the bit that we're at the moment, Matt, we're not at the bit in the operation where we're finding the boundary. We're still doing the testing. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the minute we're building the system.
Yeah.
So you patients at King's will see me around, and I talk to patients who are having this. It's called pink drink before their operation, because that the only way we can build these systems safely is to use samples of patients who are having brain tumor surgery to build them. And that's where we are now. So we have a 20 patient recruitment target. We are 11 patients in. And essentially what we use all this data for is to train our image processing algorithms to give us that accurate boundary data. And the next stage of the work, which we hope will start in August, September, is what's called an observational study, where we'll have built the system, we'll have it attached to the operating microscopes, but it will be used purely to test that it's working. So the surgeon won't be able to see the data that we're collecting. So it's not going to be used to guide surgery until we know that it's safe. And then we can analyze that data we collect and see, does it show us what we expect it to show us? Does it really match what the tumor boundaries are, before rolling it out more widely?
That gives maybe people some indication of how long things take when we're doing a research study. Hey, so we've got this idea that we want to eventually have, but there's so many steps along the way to get us there.
Yeah, absolutely.
It takes a long time.
Yeah, there's kind of a very clear pathway for how new research happens, particularly in medical devices. So you kind of have the initial building phase, which is what we're doing now, where you're gathering all the data you need to make it work. You then have a proof of concept and feasibility stage, where you show this can work, can integrate into surgery. And then you show that it's safe, and finally that it works. So you're talking a kind of 5 to 10 year lead from conception to widespread use.
So I guess for people that are entering in on trials now, it's unfortunately probably not going to help them and their brain tumor diagnosis, but we hope that in the future it will help surgeons to maximize their resection to hopefully increase life expectancy in the future. Is that our sort of plan?
Yeah, absolutely. So thinking about kind of brain tumor surgery now, we use a lot of quite sophisticated technology. So we use what's called stealth guidance navigation systems, where preoperative MRIs are mapped onto a patient while they're having their operation. So surgeons can see exactly where the tumor sits in real life. And those technologies were first being developed in exactly this way about 5 to 10 years ago. And that's kind of, patients are benefiting now from previous work that was done 5 to 10 years ago. And our hope is that patients in 5 to 10 years can benefit from the work we're doing now.
Amazing. Yeah, really interesting. And if anyone wanted to have a look up, Matt, read a bit more about this and what we're doing and get any more information about it, do you think you could point them in the direction of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the wider group that we work in uses artificial intelligence for surgical guidance. It's called CAI for CAI, CAI for CAI. And the website's caiforcai.ml. And specifically the work I'm doing is called the NeuroPPI study. So it's caiforcai.ml/NeuroPPI. That's PPEYE.
Perfect. Thank you. We can always put the link at the bottom of the video if anyone's interested as well.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for talking to us today. That was really interesting, and hope people learned a bit today about that. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Thanks
Take
very much.
care.